Hi stock investors, JJ here. Welcome back. Well, big news is out. Warren Buffett news. He's been selling a lot of stocks. So we're going to take a look at that news, see what's going on, see what they've been selling, and see the implications. What does it mean? Why has he been selling? That's what we'll try and work out as well. So here's the headline. Warren Buffett raises Berkshire cash level to record $277 billion after slashing stock holdings. That is a phenomenal amount of money when you think about it. Berkshire Hathaway is a giant company, of course, but $277 billion in cash. It has to be said that Warren Buffett, I think, has said before that they like to keep around $100 billion for insurance purposes. You know, they do have insurance operations, and if something goes wrong, like a double disaster, they like to have that much these days. But that still leaves a lot in cash. Let's get to the story itself. Berkshire Hathaway's cash pile swelled to a record $276.9 billion last quarter, and Warren Buffett sold big chunks in stock holdings, including Apple. The Omaha-based conglomerate's cash hoard jumped significantly higher from the previous record of $189 billion set in the first quarter of 2024. The increase came after the Oracle of Omaha sold nearly half of his stake in Tim Cook-led tech giant in the second quarter, and there's a separate article on that. There it is. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold nearly half its stake in Apple. Let's dive into this a little bit. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway dumped nearly half of its gigantic Apple stake last quarter, and it was a huge stake. We'll have a look at his holdings and just how much that was. And in a surprising move for the famously long-term focused investor. They say that because he is famously long-term. He likes to hold for the long term. Famously, he has held for the long term stocks like Coca-Cola, Bank of America, and Bank of America is one of the stocks that he's been selling. So selling some of the core big holdings. And the question is, why has he been doing that? Were they just too big? He is about to turn 94. Does that have an impact on it? The fact that he didn't want to leave if he happens to pass on soon, didn't want to leave his portfolio, the Berkshire portfolio, really top heavy in some of these stocks, especially Apple, to leave somebody to deal with that. That's a possibility. Another possibility is that he sees a recession coming. Just last week in the stock market, of course, stocks took a tumble because unemployment's rising. There are different indicators to suggest that the US economy is not in this Goldilocks zone as previously thought. But before that, stocks went up. So it's been very volatile. They went up because Fed Chair Jerome Powell indicated that they might be lowering rates come September. Possibly it's on the table, he said. Maybe that's more sure now that the unemployment rate has gone up. We'll have to see. Anyway, let's get back to this article. The Omaha-based conglomerate disclosed in its earnings filing that its holding in the iPhone maker was valued at $84.2 billion at the end of the second quarter, suggesting that the Oracle of Omaha offloaded a little more than 49% of the tech stake. Even after the selling, Apple remains the largest stock by far for Berkshire. Let's go ahead and have a look at this portfolio here, the Berkshire portfolio. This has not been updated. The filings are going to come out. The new 13F filings are about to come out soon. This was before it all happened. We can see the date here, 30th of the 3rd of 24. So it's the end of Q1. So the stake was 38.43. The Apple stake, $135 billion. So they've sold about half of that. And then the next one, Bank of America Corp, which is 10.57% or was 10.57% of the portfolio. That's come down, and we're going to go back to that original article and dig deeper into that. But you can see in this portfolio here, the top few holdings, he's had very long term. American Express, very long term. Coca-Cola, very long term. Chevron, and Occidental Petroleum, he's been actually buying that recently. That's one stock he has been buying, and buying Japan stocks too. See this one over at Ticker Terminal here. We can see the Mitsubishi Corp. We can see the international holdings. We can see down there a bunch of them. They actually do own a lot of stocks, but if you see the portfolio weighting, it's under 1% for most of them. Then it goes up to 1%. So these are really top heavy. That could be one reason that he was selling down. So back to this article here. It says Berkshire has been a seller of stocks for 7 quarters straight. but that selling accelerated in the last period, with Buffett shedding more than $75 billion in equities in the second quarter. That brings the total of stocks sold in the first half of 2024 to more than $90 billion. So people are at the moment, as I speak, on FinTwit, on Twitter, on X, freaking out a little bit. I think that, Buffett's selling because he can see a recession coming. So it's going to be a very interesting week just to timestamp this coming up in the stock market. The selling by Buffett has continued in the third quarter in some areas, with Berkshire trimming its second biggest stake, Bank of America, for 12 consecutive days. Filing this week showed. Now, the Bank of America stock, it has been shown that they've sold 12 consecutive days. It said there, and we know that because Berkshire owns more than 10%, and they have to say when they're selling almost immediately when they do sell. So if it goes under 10%, we won't necessarily know that he's selling until really the next quarter's filings, not the ones coming up, because the new quarter started as he's selling day by day here. So unless he tells us, and he's unlikely to tell us because that would affect the market in terms of Bank of America. He was selling like $775 million a day, some of those sales there. So that's the scale, and that can affect the market, and of course affects sentiment in the market, and especially in the particular stock here. Now we can see that in this table here that Berkshire has been a net seller of stocks. There are the 7 quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a net seller of stocks there over the past 7 quarters. And then buying before that, I think that was probably Oxy has been buying. So really, if we go back way back here, we can see that the selling has been pretty intense lately from Buffett. And we can see here this chart. I'm gonna have to move myself up on the screen here because this is spiked so high just recently. Berkshire's cash pile hits record $277 billion as it slash Apple stake. So this represents the Apple sale here. Look at that. So huge seller. It's boosted the cash pile immensely. It's a huge amount of cash there. It's not really in cash. I'm not sure how much of it is in cash, but they're a big buyer of T-bills, treasury bills, so a lot of it goes into that. And interest rates have been pretty good lately for cash and fixed term assets. He has said that he doesn't mind. In that last Berkshire meeting, I think he said doesn't mind holding cash at the moment, and it's really piling up there. So what is the reason? Does he think there's a recession's coming? Does he think there's a market crash coming? And of course, being a value investor, be happy to go in if the market crashes and scoop up some bargains. He could even soak up this much money, but it has to be said that Berkshire these days has a small pool of investments to choose from. If you think about it yourself, if you had that much money, say even you took $100 billion out of that for, say, insurance purposes, it's still a lot of money. And so the pool of investing, this pool of companies that you can buy to move the needle. And he will be trying to maintain his long-term investing average, which sits at about 19% CAGR, 19% compound annual growth rate over more than 50 years. So he'll be wanting to think seriously about his legacy, I think, and can he make these last big purchases? Apple was one of those last big purchases where it was over a $30 billion purchase, when in today's money doesn't actually seem that big anymore, but it was back then when he bought it. And the PE of Apple was pretty low. I think it was around 11 or 12, and we've had multiple expansion from Apple, and so he's done very well. Is he going to continue selling? We just don't know. He's not going to tell us because that affects the market too much. So we'll have to wait and see. Another possibility is that he thought that Apple was too expensive. Is that a possibility? So if we see some of the metrics here, we can see that the PE ratio is 34, around 34, and the forward PE ratio is 29. Now, in a video that's on YouTube, I'm not going to play it here, but he talked about his regret at not selling Coca-Cola back when it got into a bubble situation. I think it was back in the late 90s when the tech bubble was around. Other stocks did get into that bubble situation. He said he should have sold some back then, but it was trading around 50 times earnings. So if we look here, it's not particularly in that ballpark. at all, really. I mean, 35 times earnings, you wouldn't think in the past that Buffett would sell when something gets to that. Considering that the ROCE here, return on capital employed, is 57, and all of these metrics for return on capital and margins for Apple is still good. Does he think it's a declining business? That's a possibility. That iPhones aren't going to be so dominant anymore. That's another possibility. We just really don't know, but we can speculate. So those are some of the reasons, including economic, the micro, the fundamentals of the stock don't look bad. Another one is he just doesn't want to be so top heavy in the portfolio. All these are possibilities. What do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think about this. I'd be really keen to know. Now I want to tell you about the special offer I have for my viewers, my community for ShareSite, which is a portfolio tracking and reporting tool. I use it myself. I wouldn't recommend anything that I don't use myself. Now, if you go to the link in the description, you can go to this landing page and see all about it. It's all your investments in one place, not all over the place. So I have various brokers and it brings in my trades. Not that I have many trades being a value investor, but it brings in different trades from different brokers and gives you an accurate, true performance report on your portfolio. It shows you in graphs, shows you in different ways. If you go here and see this video here, it'll tell you all about it, and it can help with tax reporting, help with accounting as well. Makes things very easy, takes the hassle out of tracking your portfolio. So as I said, go to the link in the description to see that. Now I'm going to put a link on screen to what YouTube thinks that you should watch next if you're watching this on YouTube, and hi to everybody on Spotify. I'm not forgetting about you there. And thanks to everybody for watching or listening. Thanks for your company today, and I'll see you in the next one.